5 fearless debates.
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
the People's Channel?
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm here straight from the White House, from the ceremony for Charlie Kirk this afternoon. That and a lot more on The Late Show Live. I'm Bev Turner on The Late Show Live tonight.
For living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk, our nation's highest civilian honor.
A little while ago, President Trump awarding Charlie Kirk the highest honor posthumously. I was there at the White House, and I'll be bringing you all the behind-the-scenes details, including how the activist helped achieve peace in the Middle East, a story that not many people know. Also tonight.
If somebody is doing a bad job, and if I feel there's unsafe conditions, I would call Johnny, the head of FIFA, who's phenomenal, and I would say, let's move it to another level.
That right? President Trump is threatening to cancel next year's World Cup and the Olympics. But why? I've got the full details on that also tonight. Also, Meghan has some great advice for the everyday woman.
But by design, I also recognize that a lot of those people aren't going to my page to see negativity. And so not just protecting myself or the people that work with me, but also the supporters. So I don't have the comments section on.
We're going to be looking at all the stories in the papers. They're still warm. They haven't even hit the shelves yet, with two of our favourite panellists. And, of course, we are live in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories that America is talking about tonight, including this.
What about the influence of China in Argentina?
Go ahead. How is this Argentina?
President Trump putting his finger to his lips. He's got a new method of dealing with the enemy, occasionally the enemy, not always. That's the media, of course. Also tonight.
Saw you're voicing Professor Umbridge in the new Harry Potter audiobooks. I was wondering, are you aware that some fans are calling for a boycott, given J.K. Rowling's ongoing campaign against
Find out what actress Keira Knightley really thought about J.K. Rowling and her battle with the trans mob. So I have just hot-footed it back from the White House, having come from the event of the day. I've only been in the building about 20 minutes or so. It was a very moving afternoon. The sun was shining in the Rose Garden at the White House as everybody came together to remember Charlie Kirk.
For living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you.
Of course, Donald Trump spoke for at least half an hour or so about the American conservative activist said to have helped Donald Trump win the election. This posthumous honour is the highest honour that you can give to a civilian. It's, of course, nearly a month since he was gunned down on what would have been his 32nd birthday today, and the honour is to recognise those who have an especially meritorious contribution to the security or national interests of the United States or world peace, or cultural or other significant public or private endeavours. It was an emotional ceremony where his wife Erica, of course, stood and spoke to the...
I'll share with you that I asked our daughter what she would like to say to Daddy for his birthday. Excuse me. She said, "Happy birthday, Daddy. I want to give you a stuffed animal. I want you to eat a cupcake with ice cream, and I want you to go have a birthday surprise. I love you," is what she said.
I think it was a very different Erica Kirk, actually, to the one that we saw at that huge stadium event not long after Charlie's death. I felt that she was more broken today. It's almost like the shock of what she's been through had worn off. She was talking about the children, and as any parent knows, when you lose a partner, you lose the mother or the father of your children. That is the moment where you tend to lose control of your emotions, and that's what we saw with Erica Kirk this afternoon. Let's talk now to friend of Charlie Kirk, John Mappin. Now, a lot of you may know John. Good evening, John. A lot of you will recognise John from GB News. Now, John is the owner of Camelot Castle down in Cornwall. Camelot Castle became famous on GB News because John was one of the people who refused to fill his hotel with illegal immigrants when the government offered him a huge amount of money to do so. But John, in a very small world coincidence, you were also very good friends of Charlie Kirk, and you've spoken to me exclusively today about the role that Charlie played, bizarrely, in achieving peace in the Middle East. So tell me about that incident, John, and how did your friendship begin in the first place?
Well, Irina and I, my wife and I, were introduced to Charlie Kirk in about 2018, I think in the summer of 2018, and our friend thought that we should meet because we found what Charlie was doing very, very exciting, and we ended up introducing Charlie to the UK, and we had set up a tour for him for the UK, but he had it so well organized that we ended up actually not being in England and when he came over to the UK, and we had a telephone call from him to say, John, I really, really want you to meet Erica, and we would love for you to come to Jerusalem with us. And I'd not been to Jerusalem before, and so we arrived in late March in Jerusalem. And it was just at the point where a lot of the negotiations in relation to the Abraham Accords were sort of mid-process. And this extraordinary tale began actually at the King David Hotel. I think it was on the evening of the 16th of March, as I recall. And we were sitting down and we were brainstorming all the various different ways that, peace in the Middle East could be achieved, and discussing the various things that were possible or not possible, what might work, what might not work. And it was interesting today that Erica, if you remember, Beverly, said that Charlie has this ability, or had this ability, to think out of the box. And as we were discussing what was occurring, the issue of the sovereignty of the Golan Heights came up. And the Golan Heights is an area of land that has been, or had been, disputed for, I think, 80 years between the various different parties in the Middle East. And it was something that we knew was a complete impasse. And at some point in the conversation, Charlie just sort of, in a way that was completely out of the box, he said, well, why don't we just announce the sovereignty of the Golan Heights? And it was always a sort of a moment of everybody around the table, Erica, myself, Irina, my son Caspian was there. He was a little young to contribute to the conversation, but everybody just heard this. We thought, my God, that's it. He said, you're never going to believe this. I am flying to the Golan Heights tomorrow with an officer from the IDF. And he said, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to discuss it. And the next day he flew to the Golan Heights, and he then called Jared Kushner, who was working at that time as part of the Trump administration. And he said, Jared, listen, I'm at the Golan Heights. What if we just announce that the Golan Heights are sovereign? Well, Jared said, well, of course, that's a great idea. But would you mind if you speak to the president about it? So literally, he walked the phone through to the Oval Office and spoke to the president and said, listen, I'm at the Golan Heights. This is Charlie Kirk here, and Charlie, how are you? And so on and so forth. It was a very relaxed conversation. I'm at the Golan Heights. We should just take that piece off the table. Let's just announce the sovereignty of the Golan Heights. And the president apparently said, well, I'll think about it. Anyway, Charlie flew back from the Golan Heights. And that night, we discussed it over dinner. He said, well, I think the idea was received favorably, and we were very excited. And of course, we were having a wonderful time in Jerusalem. And it was just one of those conversations. We kept on discussing it. We walked, actually, Beverly, we walked the path of Jesus Christ together. And, you know, Charlie was a deeply religious Christian, as has been commented. And we just kept on talking about this idea. A few days later, I think it was on Purim, which is the Jewish festival, where apparently God's will can occur on Purim. And all of a sudden, this tweet comes out from the White House that the Golan Heights is now sovereign. And the surprise...
So it's no exaggeration. So, yeah, go on, John.
Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, so it's no exaggeration to say that this was 2019, but we wouldn't have got to the position we're in now had the Golan Heights still been a point of contention between Syria, right, Jordan, Israel, Lebanon.
That you're absolutely right, because this was the one issue that they would have gone into a negotiation room and they would have just argued about the Golan Heights. And it was just Charlie's way of thinking, because he just constantly, he was all about the possibility of what could work. How could we get peace in the Middle East? What if we try this? What if we try that? What if we... And this was his genius. And can I just ask you, John, because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I know you've got so much to say on this, but I just want to challenge this idea that Charlie Kirk was just somebody that went to universities and spoke
to young people about conservative Christian ideologies. He was obviously doing a lot more behind the scenes. How much do you think the president misses him in that role?
I am certain that the president misses him tremendously because they used each other as sounding boards. You know, Charlie relied on the president a lot, and the president knew that Charlie was very connected with the so-called Trump base or the Republican base because he had his radio and TV show. And so people do have this idea that he was somebody that was going around universities, but Charlie and I kept in touch. We would probably be in touch 2 or 3 times a week from 2018, from December 2018, when we first actually met in person in London. And he was absolutely dedicated to peace. He wanted peace in the Middle East. He wanted peace in Ukraine. And actually, during the first administration, Charlie was extremely influential geopolitically. And there are a number of engagements, military engagements, that did not happen. So we've not heard about these conflicts, simply because Charlie was constantly pushing for peace. And actually, if you were to analyze his tweets, of course, he made thousands of tweets, but as somebody that has probably read most of them, his favorite scripture, funnily enough, was, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be the children of God." And, you know, he worked day and night for peace in Ukraine. He saw that conflict as something that need not have happened in the first instant. And he made sure that people around him understood the sources of these conflicts. And he was, to my mind, far more of a geopolitical player. Funnily enough, in the last 3 years, Turning Point had been running extremely well, you know, and Turning Point has a superb team of executives. You know, he had Mikey McCoy there, you know, various different, very, very able executives that now have taken Turning Point on. Charlie was focused, number one, on making sure that President Trump got re-elected at the last general election, in the presidential election in America. But number two, he worked for world peace. And in that capacity, I genuinely believe that the administration is looking at an extraordinary vacuum of love and care in that area. And of course, there are, you know, many other great people that would like to see peace occur, but he knew all the facts. You know, Charlie was encyclopedic in his knowledge.
He would have been thrilled, John, I imagine, to have seen peace in the Middle East having been achieved, and I think he would have been absolutely delighted by the scenes at the White House today, to see so many people that he loved and who loved him and respected him. The whole cabinet were there today, the Trump cabinet, and so many legends from broadcasting. We saw Tucker Carlson there, and the guy from Fox News, what's his name? I can't remember. Bill O'Reilly was there as well. My panel are filling me in. And, you know, some real legends from the world of broadcasting, particularly here in America, not necessarily that familiar to British audience. But John, thank you so much for sharing those memories. I really appreciate it. And it's, I think it's incredibly illuminating to see what was going on behind the scenes. John Mappin there from Camelot Castle down in Tintagel. Thanks, John. Right, my panel are with me, helping me out there, Stephen Kent and Democrat strategist Mally Smith. So those broadcasters who were there today, we saw the pictures of them there. Tucker Carlson, ex-Fox News, incredibly, arguably one of the most successful broadcasters in the world, independent journalist.
Yep.
Who's the guy from Fox News?
Bill O'Reilly. He was Tucker Carlson before Tucker Carlson. When Mally and I were growing up, Bill O'Reilly was the king of Fox News.
And who's the guy who's on Fox News now?
That was his lackey, Jesse Waters.
Jesse Waters, that's the name I'm looking for.
Yeah, so, no, Jesse Waters carried his water. He was his comedian who would come on and just do gag segments, and now he runs the show.
And Benny Johnson we're looking at there.
Yeah, of course. Star-studded event.
Yeah, it was a star-studded event. And you know, I mean, there's Tucker Carlson. So this guy on the left is the one you're talking about. That's,
of course, yes. Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, and Jesse Waters there, that's the back of his head. So, but the point is that why were they there, Mally? Why did Charlie have such good connections with those sorts of phenomenally influential broadcasters?
Well, I think they respected him as a communicator. He not only was able to reach Americans in this country, but he was able to reach folks worldwide. I disagreed with his politics, but there's no arguing his ability to connect with young people. And as folks who are on that side are conservative, I'm sure they respected his ability to communicate their values, especially to young folks when they felt like, especially in the Obama years, that they were losing young people culturally and politically.
Yeah, I think just remembering that, you know, young conservative influencers like Charlie Kirk, they cut their teeth on places like Fox News and on broadcast and Newsmax and OAN. I mean, he is a known quantity to all these men, and they probably knew him when he was a kid. Charlie Kirk was getting started when he was a late teenager with this movement that he built that changed the country in so many dramatic ways.
I thought, as I said just at the top there, I thought Erica Kirk was very different today. It was a very intimate setting in the Rose Garden there. It's the area that President Trump has renovated. He's made it look very beautiful, like he has all sorts of areas of the White House. And she was clearly upset. There was less of the anger, you know, when she spoke in the stadium just after Charlie's death, and she said that man, and her eyes went to the heavens. She was much more frail today. I thought much more vulnerable. It was, like I say, it's a very intimate setting. People who she knows, almost all of them there.
Grief moves in waves. You know, there's just these times where you're remarkably strong and you don't even know where your strength is coming from, and like, how am I acting together today?
Yeah.
And then there are days like this where I think like you said, the anger and the indignation and even the shock of it has faded, and you come to a couple weeks later and you go, what on earth is happening?
There was just one interesting moment, I don't know whether it's been picked up on by the media, is that when President Trump spoke before Erica, he spoke for at least half an hour. He talked about politics as well, like he does. He talked about the successes of the Republican Party. And he also talked about Charlie in a little bit, and he said, I've heard that, you know, Charlie was very forgiving of his enemies, and, you know, I'm not sure that's true. That's not the Charlie Kirk that I knew. And sort of jokes, because there was, of course, that line in the stadium where she was talking about forgiveness, where Erica was talking about forgiveness. And when Erica came on the stage as well, behind the lectern, and she said, Charlie, and she sort of looked at the president, said, Charlie did pray for his adversaries, like, you know, she and he was. The Trump kind of went, no, he didn't, and she went, yes, he did. Well, I saw it. She really pushed back on that. It was interesting. There was something. There was a metal about her. There was a steel that just bubbled to the surface and came out.
Well, I think that, you know, Trump was trying to push back a little bit because he got a lot of criticism after, you know, you have a widow there who's able to forgive her assassin, but then Trump basically, at the same event, castigating his enemies. But I do think what she said about Charlie Kirk praying for his enemies and praying for folks he disagreed with, I'm sure that's true because he both was very religious and was a political being. And, you know, Christianity teaches us to forgive and to have compassion. And politics teaches us that we need to win the next election, and those things can be in contention.
Yeah. Sometimes we know different versions of people, and there's no doubt Charlie Kirk was in the Oval Office talking shop with J.D. Vance and Trump on how to win and defeat their opponents, but, you know, his wife knows a different side of him.
Yeah. Right, let me know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Still to come on The Late Show Live. What is wrong with this front cover? If you're listening on the radio, it is a front cover of Time magazine. It's a picture of Donald Trump. It is not especially flattering. Find out what the president thinks of it shortly, but also your front pages from both sides of the Atlantic, including Britain's tough new Home Secretary, who's made a big admission about the state of our borders. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I am Bev Turner. I've got my panel with me for the remainder of the evening. Let's have a quick look at the newspaper front pages from the UK. The Daily Telegraph is leading with Mahmoud. The UK has lost control of its borders. That is our Home Secretary. You don't say. Is that genuinely a headline in the Daily Telegraph? You could have done that 10 years ago and it would have been accurate. Moving on, Daily Mail. Labour isn't working, they say. This is on a week in which Rachel Reeves will be, in fact, she landed in Washington, D.C. today. Apparently, she's in America to tell everybody how fabulous our country is and how brilliant our economy is. This is pointing out that we've got the number of jobless has hit a 4-year high. We face the highest inflation in the G7, according to the International Monetary Fund, and the growth in wages and living standards has stalled. But Rachel Reeves is here to tell America that we are great again. The Daily Express. They are leading with Ray Reeves' blow as prices rise and growth stalls. Again, the economy just not going in the right direction. Must say, a lot of people here in America say that Trump's economy is not doing that well either. On the front page of the New York Post this morning, well, tomorrow morning it will be, Mitt Romney's brother tried to make sure estranged wife got nothing in divorce before her tragic end, according to documents. Does that mean anything to you, Mali?
No, and it's a weird thing to lead with.
It's such a strange thing to lead with. And also they've got the title of Split Ends. I thought it was a hair feature until I realised it was about something quite serious. We'll be possibly looking at that later, unless there's something more interesting. And the New York Times is leading with Israel pressuring Hamas to return the bodies, but Gaza's destruction poses the challenge. Obviously, yesterday there was all of the jubilation that the Middle East was all sorted out. I was urging a little caution. Some people were. Well, we're not there yet. Let me know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Let's now talk to comedian and GB News contributor Paul Cox on those front pages and bring in my panel of Steve and Mali as well. Good evening, Paul. Thank you very much for joining us here on The Late Show Live. It's always lovely to see your smiling face. Should we talk about the economy in the UK? Because there's a few front pages there who are basically saying that the UK is losing its way in the economy, but Rachel Reeves is still trying to convince us of the opposite.
Isn't she just? I didn't realise until you mentioned that she was travelling to the States this week, and my advice to you chaps in the States is don't listen. She has nothing to offer, really, in terms of the economy. She really doesn't. It's sad to see. This is an indictment on us all on this side of the pond. It's a deluge of misery on the front pages for Rachel Reeves this morning in the UK, tomorrow morning from your perspective. And as you pointed out, Labour isn't working again. Reeves blowers price rise growth stalls. We've just found out we have the highest inflation in the G7. That's a terrible statistic. And it turns out that if you, and in my opinion, invent a black hole, which she did. She took a £9 billion black hole, turned it into a £22 billion black hole for her first ever budget. And then, weirdly, within 12 months of that first budget, that black hole doubled, or more than doubled, from 22 billion to £50 billion, which only could happen under her tenure. It hasn't happened under anyone else's tenure. So she invented a black hole and then doubled the size of it. She talks down the country. She taxes people to death. And quite frankly, has displayed nothing less than a student economics, Bev. And I say it's an indictment for us all because, like you were saying, the economy in the US is questionable as well. There is a problem globally across the world, but we are not doing the right things here in the UK. There are so many things that we could do, fundamentally different, that we could and should be doing, Bev.
Yeah, Mali, isn't this what happens though when you put a socialist in charge of the country? I mean, you saw something similar under Biden.
Well, Biden certainly wasn't a socialist, but I can say this, that, you know, she and the Labour government is going to have to be careful because inflation is an incumbent killer. Rising prices makes voters incredibly frustrated. I think we did a lot of good things under Biden, and we could point to record job growth, investment, stock market, but since inflation spiked, and then it took a while to come down. And also when economists talk about inflation coming down, they don't mean it's actually the prices are going lower. They just mean the rate of increase is slowing. That makes voters incredibly unhappy. So I think she and now the Trump administration have the same problem, which is they have inflation ticking up a tad and they have growth slowing. And the things you do to either combat inflation or to increase growth can counteract each other. So they're going to have to figure out a way out of this puzzle.
Stephen, I was talking to somebody at the White House today who was saying this is all great that Donald Trump is solving world peace and talking to the president of Argentina like he was today. But this insider said to me, but he does need to get a handle on the economy because the American public is starting to notice that their bills are not going down and their grocery shopping is incredibly expensive. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, everything Mali said is absolutely true, you know, and when the economy is being pushed in different directions by your economic agenda, but then also just by market forces, people just do a vibe check. It's the vibe session. You can't say that things are going really well on Wall Street and our GDP is growing when eggs are like $8 per carton. That is how normal people measure the strength of the economy, is the affordability of their household goods. And Donald Trump's #1 problem, I've said it every week on this show, is his obsession with tariffs and trying to increase the costs of goods for the sake of the country and making them in America, all this stuff. I respect the idea, but it doesn't work. If he did nothing except just go to work every day and then work on foreign affairs, the economy would be in great shape.
Well, Paul, I was just going to say, Paul, I keep waiting for the economy to just go pop. And I just want them to tell us when that's going to happen, because we can't even meet the payments on the interest alone on the money that we have borrowed. I don't know how much longer we can sustain this system. Do you share that fear?
I do. Unfortunately, I think it's only a matter of time. Maybe within the next 12 months, we could be going to the IMF like we did in 1976 and saying, we can no longer pay our debt. We need to be bailed out. And can you imagine that? Our great country here having to do that purely because we've made terrible economic decisions. Just wanted to echo something that Steve said there. Look, I'm a Trump fan. I'm a comedian by day and often by night, actually. But I've always found him thoroughly interesting. One thing I've been totally bemused about is this tariff issue that he seems to be making a rod for his own back. It never seems to work in his favour. It seems to annoy all the wrong people, and it has affected the UK and the European economy too. I don't want to blame Trump for that. I think I've always admired the way he's tried to take control of the US's future in a way that we haven't in the UK, but I've always been bemused by it.
Malbert, last word.
Yeah, I do think it's political suicide to run and win an election on costs and then to implement tariffs, which, depending on the estimates you look at, is about a $2,400 tax on middle-class Americans. Grocery prices are the highest they've ever been, and electricity is up 10% since he became president. And I think if he wants to continue to have the approval numbers he's having, he's going to have to stop saying the economy's great and start doing things to actually bring down costs.
OK, Paul, Mally, Steve, thank you so much. We'll be back with you, Paul, as well in the next half an hour or so. But coming up on The Late Show Live, still tonight.
The £22 billion black hole.
The £22 billion black hole of £22 billion.
Just been talking about Rachel Reeves is in Washington, D.C. If you're watching, Chancellor, I could have a glass of wine after the show if you like. She's here to talk up the UK, whilst the IMF yesterday confirmed that we currently have the worst living standards of growth in the West. Also tonight.
It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops.
Remember that is the Secretary of State for War, Pete Hegseth. Well, he's been forced to act after viral images of overweight troops have basically been all over the internet. I'll bring you the details of that. Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If they don't disarm, we will disarm them. They know I'm not playing games, okay? Now, we did something monumental. We got the hostages back. That was the first thing we had to do. Above all else, get the hostages back. Now, they misrepresented because we were told they had 26, 24 of dead hostages, if we can use those terms. And it seems as though they don't have that because we're talking about a much lesser number.
I do hope that the President is tucked up in bed right now, watching The Late Show live just round the corner, because he got back at 3 o'clock in the morning from Egypt. And he had the Argentinian president there welcoming him at 1 o'clock this afternoon. They had lunch and a meeting, and then he did that press conference, and then he held the Charlie Kirk ceremony to award this medal posthumously to Charlie. I don't know how. I just genuinely don't know how he does it. But, as you saw then, that was just a few hours ago, he issued a warning to Hamas over the return of the dead Israeli hostages from Gaza. We're going to be looking at that in a little while. But first, Chancellor Rachel Reeves will speak here in Washington tomorrow during a packed day of IMF and World Bank annual meetings. She's going to tell the world that Britain is a beacon of stability and growth. Honestly, the headlines write themselves on this, don't they? You heard me right. She's expected also to urge partners to stand firm on Ukraine and to tighten economic the vice on Russia. And can I just point out that a statement that came from the HMRC, from the Treasury, said they have to tighten the economic vice on Russia, and they spelt vice, V-I-S-E. This comes at a rocky moment for the UK. The IMF confirmed yesterday that Britain is set to have the highest inflation in the G7 group of countries, whilst the Office of National Statistics have said that unemployment has climbed to its highest level since the pandemic. So well done, Great Britain. Let's get the take of political advisor and author Simon Thompson, who I think, Simon, you're going to put up a bit of defence, are you, of the Chancellor, and say that actually things in the UK aren't that bad, are they?
Well, look, there's no doubt there's a mixed bag, but what Rachel Reeves will absolutely do is focus on those IMF figures, which show we've got the second highest growth in the G7. So look, that doesn't mean to say that everything's going brilliantly. Obviously, the unemployment figure, the inflation figures, there is much more to be done. But when you take that wider picture, when you look at what other countries are enduring at the moment, actually the UK comes out quite well. Not well enough, but quite well. And that's what she'll say tomorrow.
The thing, though, Simon, that worries me more than anything in terms of our economic landscape at the moment, our financial future, is the closure of small businesses. Those businesses which are family-run, that have tight margins, they've got the pressures of higher costs, weaker demand, higher interest rates, national insurance has gone up, they're not getting any relief in property taxes and business rates. Those sorts of things that affect businesses. We've had an increase in minimum wage, of course, good for some people, but not good for small businesses. Is she doing enough for those people? She could surely do more.
Well, I think you can always do more, and the budget will do more, I am sure. The budget will be a tough budget. There's no doubt about that, and the government has trailed that well in advance. But what those growth figures show... Sorry?
Tough for who?
Well, tough for the whole of the country. I mean, you know, there is no, you know...
We can't take it, Simon. We just can't take any more. She's going to bankrupt everybody, isn't she?
So we've got the second highest growth, Bev. Second highest growth. Now, is that high enough? No, especially for the plans about investment in the NHS and education that the government is wanting to do and has done already. but wants to do more. So it needs more growth. It needs to relieve pressure on inflation. So Great British Energy and plans for investment and taking red tape away from planning to get the economy moving even faster. Absolutely, there is more to do. But a year in, after the financial black hole of the last Conservative government, is good progress, not good enough, but that will mean that she can go to the States, hand on heart, and say, look, the policies are starting to work, stick with us and invest in this country. And that is a really positive message to take out there and will drive investment to this country. And the more investment we can get, that stability that some of your previous guests talked about as well, focus on that stability, get that investment in, and that will help the economy even more. So it's a good start, not, much more to do, but a good start.
Do you know what though, Simon? When we talk about investment, when we hear this government talking about investment, they're talking about investment in massive, massive companies, big transnational corporations, AI, all of these huge technocratic industries that are doing nothing. I return to my previous point, for small and medium-sized enterprises, and that just gives the impression that Labour don't care about the working person that wants to make their own money and provide for their own family, that they just want to push the money upstream. How can that be the case in a Labour government?
Well, I don't agree with that, Bev, for a moment. I mean, I think again, the budget will have more proof of that support for small businesses. They'll put, investment and support for across business rates, which will be really important across high streets. You've seen investment in high street, the Places fund that they've put that recently announced as well. So no, I don't agree with that at all. I think that they are putting an emphasis on small and medium-sized businesses. Again, enough. More can always be done, of course, but they've only been in power for a year, and that growth figure gives her the confidence and gives the government the confidence that it can really move forward and attract investment, and not just investment of big businesses, although that's important, but businesses across the piece.
All right, I hope you're right, Simon Thompson. I would love to share your optimism, and you know a lot more about this stuff than I do, so let's hope you are right. Thank you so much for joining me, political advisor and author Simon Thompson there. Right, still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
Are Generation Z misogynist? I'll bring you some of the latest polling from the UK. It might shock you. My American guests were chuckling at that because they know exactly what that video was. We're going to look at it in just a minute. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, you didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon.
That was the Secretary of State just last week, wasn't it? A weekend before. Pete Hegseth speaking to troops in Virginia. Well, this week, after viral images showed some rather heavy-set men arriving in Chicago as part of President Trump's immigration crackdown, Hegseth has responded to criticism by replacing them within days. In other words, they were told, you're too big, fatty, go home. You're not allowed to represent the National Guard on the streets. I mean, that is brutal. Standards are back, he said on X, linking to a news story about these fat troops. The National Guard reposted a statement saying all of its soldiers are required to meet service-specific height, weight and physical standards at all times. So was he right to remove them? Let's talk now to body positivity advocate, plus-size model, Eva Believer, the best name I've ever had on the show, Eva. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, you may not necessarily be a military expert, but you're certainly somebody that has a very strong opinion on how culture views physicality, and that we shouldn't always be, let's use this awful phrase, fat shaming. Pete Hegseth is absolutely fat shaming these soldiers. Should he be?
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I always love to be on GB News, no matter what topic I discuss. Well, I just found out about this today, actually. I saw it on the news, and I am a bit shocked. In terms, I don't know if you remember, once we discussed the subject of a plus-size dancers in the classical ballet, and I said
yes,
exactly...
we did, Eva.
Yes, 100% I disagreed with it, because I think there are particular professions, particular arts, let's say, because I'm an artist myself, and there are jobs that require very particular looks. So you are able to perform some physical tasks, you know, you're able to recreate some sort of arts, you know, and fantasies of the composers and creators. But as you said, I am not really a big expert in this field, but I think this was a little bit unfair. I spoke to my husband, you know, before coming on the show, because he knows definitely much more than me about this some sort of subject. And he said, you know, not all troops actually are the ones who, let's say, like jump high and run with these guns and need to sort of lightweight to, you know, do all of these tasks. But there are people who need to lift heavy weights, people who need to carry sort of stuff like guns, whatever, I don't know. And I looked at those pictures. Actually, it was a very ridiculous one. I think I saw it on the Daily Mail. But this was bigger guy, and after him was standing a very, very skinny guy. And I was thinking, like, what the skinny guy then can do, how he can, you know, carry all those armors and guns and whatever. So I think, firstly, you know, even doing this sort of statement, the guy needed to, I don't know, he needed to express himself, but the pictures of these people needed at least to hide their faces, because this is so humiliating. You're coming to work for the country. You're coming to represent some sort of thing, and this positive all effect has been destroyed. You've been told, look, you fat, that's your face, you're never going to be in this position ever again. So I think it is not nice, and I totally disagree on this subject.
It's not nice. I think you're right on that. It's not a nice thing ever to humiliate somebody publicly and send them away from their job for being overweight, which is what he's done. But is there something deeper here? Like with Pete Hegseth's messaging, is it going to turn the dial on the idea that obesity is good? Like, will his messaging spread around the whole of America? And especially with the ambition to make America healthy again, that can't be a bad thing, can it?
No, I totally understand that. But, you know, as I said, I looked at the pictures, I investigated things on social media, you know, I tried to get as much information as I can before coming on the show. And I saw some people, and it looks like it's their natural physiques. They're not like terribly obese that they need to carry their bellies in the corsets. They just look okay. They're just chubbier people who can carry weights, who can protect the country. They're not looking morbidly obese. So maybe some of these like are just masculine, you know, like they have lots of muscle. I don't know, sorry, but they didn't look like obese to me to be insulted this way.
Okay, Eva, thank you so much for joining me. Eva Believer there, plus size model, Stephen and Mally here. We're all slightly giggling at the idea that soldiers might have to tuck their bellies into a corset to defend the country. I don't think any of us want to see that, gentlemen. Do we?
Is Eva okay?
But it does make us giggle. But the thing is, what Pete Hegseth is saying is so radically different, Mally, that anything we've heard before from anybody in power.
In the last 4 to 5 years, radically different.
Look, I'm fine if they are not meeting the physical standards they need to meet to be in the military, to reassign them or put them in training until they do, and then they can be redeployed. But I do want to be careful in the sense of, I don't want to make fun of folks who are randomly get a photo taken of them who A, serve their country, which is something I've never done, and B, they're deployed to Chicago in part of Trump's campaign to crack down on cities. They have no choice in this matter, right? Like, they are doing their job, coming from a different state potentially, to do this task they might not want to do. So yes, let's get the soldiers fit, but I'm not going to make fun of some random
buy those men some corsets, I say. Right, more of that in just a minute. But next, what is wrong with this photograph? The president had some very strong words for the editor of Time magazine. We will tell you what he objected to in just a minute. Quick look at the weather, though.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another cloudy day for most of us, with a few light showers around, otherwise dry, but lucky some will have some sunshine. A few cloud breaks possible in the south first thing, likewise for West Wales, but the largest cloud breaks, once again, like the previous few days, central and northern parts of Scotland, particularly over the Highlands and the Grampians, where the clouds are poking through the cloud and reaching the sunshine above. Some light showers around coasts, but otherwise it's dry. It's not particularly chilly. It's not particularly warm either under the grey leaden skies, temperatures around the mid-teens. Then heading into the evening, well, we keep those clear skies across much of central Scotland. There is some thicker cloud for the north and northwest of Scotland. Some light showers associated with this as well. Cloud hugging the Western Isles, but clear inland. Through the central belt, mostly cloudy. Likewise for southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of England. But for Wales, well, a large part of West Wales and parts of Cornwall and Devon seeing some clear spells as we go into the night. And that's why we'll see big contrasts overnight from place to place, because where we keep the cloud, it's going to be a mild night. We'll avoid fog, but we will see a few mist patches forming as the cloud lowers a little. Where we keep the clear skies, there will be some fog patches and Perhaps a touch of frost, or at least a ground frost, with temperatures heading towards the low single figures in a few spots. But otherwise, it's a reasonably mild start to Thursday, but again, a reasonably cloudy one. I think there's a better chance through the day tomorrow of some decent cloud breaks developing. Just about anywhere could see these. They'll come and go. Very fickle, this low cloud. And into Friday and the weekend, likewise, some cloud breaks, some sunshine out there, otherwise largely cloudy until the end of the weekend when it turns more settled.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Tonight on The Late Show Live.
For living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk, our nation's highest civilian honor.
This afternoon, President Trump in the Rose Garden at the White House. I was there. Lots of names from the world of media and politics, of course. The entire cabinet pretty much in attendance. Tucker Carlson you're seeing on your screen there, of course, alongside legends from the world of American media. Erica Kirk received the medal on behalf of her deceased husband. It was a very moving afternoon. Beautiful sunshine shone across the White House on what would have been Charlie Kirk's birthday, his 32nd birthday. It would have been today. Everybody was there to celebrate his life, and Erica Kirk was visibly, of course, emotional. And her children, when she spoke about her children, was the moment that she did start to cry, of course, as anybody who's lost a partner will tell you, that it's when you think about your children is when the emotion really comes through. That was just this afternoon. My panel are here with me still. Stephen Kent and Mally Smith are here. Guys, it was a remarkable day. It was actually America does this so well, those occasions. I mean, we think about the UK doing pomp and ceremony on big occasions, but actually something like that, it was very intimate in the Rose Garden at the White House. The cabinet were there. And this medal that's been awarded to Charlie, the highest honour that can go to a non-military person, American person, was this the right thing to do, do you think? It was on Charlie Kirk's birthday as well.
Well, it's certainly not going to be without controversy. In 2002, I remember Mr. Rogers getting the Medal of Freedom. It then went to Bob Dylan.
Who was Mr. Rogers?
Oh my gosh, Mr. Rogers is he raised children in the 70s, 80s, and 90s on PBS. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was like the most iconic children's programming when we were kids. But he got the Medal of Freedom from George Bush. It went to Bob Dylan. Trump awarded it to Tiger Woods in his first term. And Joe Biden awarded the Medal of Freedom. Yeah, Tiger Woods. Redemption story, right? Donald Trump loves a redemption story. But then, Joe Biden awarded it to a NATO secretary, which is strange. I'm pretty sure that guy's not American. So I was always confused by that. But this will be a controversial one for sure.
Joe Biden gave it to George Soros.
Sure.
I've just remembered.
Hang on. A different one.
No, I think that's the same medal. I think Joe Biden gave this to George Soros. Check it for me, to my researcher on my right. I'm not casting you as my researcher tonight. No. Even though you are dressed like a teacher from my high school in the 80s, Stephen Kent. This is quite the look.
I gave up my career at Oxford after a transfer to Hogwarts. Now I'm here and just happy to be with GB News in the US.
It's strangely attractive. I don't mind it, I can't lie. But back to Joe Biden's poor judgment. Mally, I believe that he gave it to people that Donald Trump is now trying to literally bring on criminal charges in the case of George Soros. What do you think Trump is doing by honouring Charlie in this way? What's the statement he's making?
Well, first off, let's be clear that there are no criminal charges pending against George Soros.
I said he's trying to bring them.
Yes, we see that
We're
Trump
waiting
administration is very
for those
good
charges.
at political prosecutions. We'll see if there's any more tweets that were supposed to be private messages to Pam Bondi. I know there are some progressives who are unhappy with Charlie Kirk getting the Medal of Freedom. But for me, it is something where, especially with how divided our country is, there's not going to be any figures, for the most part, that everyone is going to agree this person deserves it, especially if they at all work in politics. So I think if this is a way that he wants to honor someone who worked in the conservative movement, who got young people interested in politics, that's completely fine. And for progressives who don't like it, I would say when there's a Democratic president, I'm sure we're going to give the Medal of Freedom to someone they don't like.
I still, do you think those progressives who don't like Charlie Kirk, how can those people still exist now that presumably they've watched more of his footage and the kind of things that he was saying?
Bev, I've been thinking about this a lot, actually, because everybody knew a different version of Charlie Kirk. And even as a fan of Charlie, there were different versions of him. His radio show, his podcast, bombast, shooting from the hip, saying things that usually he would walk back the next day. That's the job of a talk radio guy, right? You say a lot of stuff over 4 hours that you kind of wish you could take back.
I can relate.
Charlie Kirk on stage was an inspirational speaker for young people about classical virtue, going back to church, family formation, grace and forgiveness. These were two completely different people. And then there was Charlie on campus. And Charlie on campus was a dueler, but also he was always leading his discourses with liberals on campus, with trying to understand their view, setting terms, finding areas of agreement, and then decimating them in a debate.
To jump off what Stephen's saying there, I agree in that I've seen footage of Charlie Kirk where I thought, he showed compassion. I thought he, it was an interesting debate. But I've also seen footage where I think he has expressed some views that were incredibly problematic. He said that Joe Biden should be shot for treason. He said that Michelle Obama didn't have the brain power to get into Princeton. He said that he gets worried if there's a black person who's flying his plane.
No, hang on, just to clarify, what he was talking about then was that DEI had promoted people above their skill set or their qualifications, and therefore, if he saw a black person as a pilot, he thought, oh no, have you actually qualified, or are you there because of DEI?
Which is the timeless issue with affirmative
not
action.
racism.
Affirmative action has always ran into this issue, which is that it raises the specter of, is everybody in jobs that are meritorious? Did everybody earn their position, or were they given to it over someone more qualified? And that's the point.
Go on, let's let Mally come back on that.
Well, I would just say, look, there's DEI. We also have in the United States legacy admissions. Folks who donate billions of dollars get into college easier. Jared Kushner, his family gave billions of dollars to get into Harvard. But
they might run businesses, but they tend not to fly planes.
Charlie Kirk didn't express any concern about hedge fund billionaires who got there because their parents were rich, but he did express concern about black folks who might be piloting his plane. So, I do think Charlie Kirk had some moments where I could say I agreed with him, but he also had some very problematic moments that folks don't
with
have to
conservatives
agree
as
with
well.
him.
I mean, one of the last interviews that he did was on Tucker Carlson's show.
Yeah, let me talk to my guest. I'm so thrilled to talk to this lady. I'm a huge fan. I'm actually full of admiration for Dr. Gina Loudon. Gina, it's so good to see you. You were one of the people leading tributes to Charlie Kirk at Mar-a-Lago tonight. So just first of all, your take and your reflections really on what a special day this has been, thanks to President Trump recognising Charlie.
You know, it was perhaps the most special part of this evening. Obviously, today was just jam-packed with amazing moments that really touch your heart. But the special part of this evening was I asked a question when I spoke. I said, how many people in this room either bought or opened a Bible for the first time because of Charlie? And do you know, probably about half of the room, these were conservatives. These were Charlie's staunchest supporters. So these are people who had maybe gone through life believing in the basic tenets of faith or something, but maybe didn't own a Bible or had never opened one, but they have now. So that was one of the most amazing. I was a little shocked. I don't know if that surprises you, but that surprised me. I thought it was really beautiful.
It does surprise me, but my logic about that, Gina, is that people have started to listen to Charlie's videos, and that's the beauty of the internet, isn't it? Like, he will live forever on the internet. And I think there's a logic going, well, I agreed with him on this. I agree with him when he talks about family being important. I agree with him when he talks about taking responsibility for your own life. Maybe I might agree with him on Christianity. And so there's a curious, he's opened a door of curiosity, which I think has led people to Christianity, to religion, to a sense of purpose and meaning. What might be the positives be that come from that, do you think?
I think I never heard it put so succinctly as Charlie seemed to do so naturally. You know, he was a deep student of philosophy and theology and all of those things, but he was so plain spoken. Right? You listen to him and everything he said is so easy to digest. And one of the things he said all the time is that freedom without faith is dead. Freedom cannot survive without a faithful underpinning. And so anybody who loves freedom has to understand that faith has to walk hand in hand for us to have real freedom that actually endures and lasts, especially in a society that, as we know, is full of evil. And so I think that's one of his messages that synced the hardest with me, and that I think in just the whole fearlessness. You know, the way he taught us all he taught us to walk and told us to run, you know, and now we have to run because we have to take up that mantle. And the death of Charlie, the assassination, the martyrdom of Charlie Kirk has created millions of Charlies out there who now will walk fearlessly, because we know one thing, we're all going to die. So if they're going to use our life, if they're going to use my life to increase freedom and faith and family, almost anyone I know would lay down their life for those purposes. Almost anyone in the cause would. So I think it's really a beautiful thing how God has used such a tragic event.
And Gina, can I ask you about this other news story from today? Because I know this is an area of interest and expertise for you, which is about California banning ultra-processed foods from school meals. Now, it's seen as a move by California Democrats to outflank the Trump administration's efforts to reform American health, isn't it, to some degree? But what's your response to this news? It seems so obvious, really, that we should be doing this anyway.
My response to this is it's not us or them. Look, if California wants to do some good things because of the inspiration of RFK Jr. and all the great things that he's made obvious and brought to our attention, if California wants to follow suit on that, there's no jealousy there. We're thrilled and we welcome it, and we welcome any leftists or Democrats to work with us all the time. That has never been the contention of any conservative that I've ever known, that we didn't want to work with people on the other side. It's just simply not true. My own father was a very hard leftist all of his life. We worked opposite each other and everything. We voted opposite each other and everything. And we loved each other. And I don't understand, I've never understood why countries can't operate that way. We don't have to agree on everything, but if there's something good that you and I agree on, whether it's children's health or we love animals or, we want to stop cancer, whatever it is, let's go fight on that together, right? I've never understood why just because one person believes something, I have to believe the opposite because I have a different label. I just don't understand that at all. So I'm thrilled.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more, and I think this is a kind of media casting the enemies because conflict sells newspapers, right? That was a headline from the Daily Telegraph, is about the legislation is a move by California's Democrats to outflank Trump's administration. But isn't this just about the fact that we live in a world that doesn't prioritize children enough, Gina? If everybody would just, with every policy decision, go, well, how does it affect families? How does it affect kids? I think the world would be a slightly better place.
A lot better place. Look, if you're a local farmer in America and you want to donate healthy, chemical-free milk to a lunch program, you can't do it because we have so federalized and filled our entire body education with bureaucratic ruthlessness that literally the local people who might have good, healthy foods to donate can't even donate them because they have to go through such a series of processes. If the Democrats want to take what RFK Jr. is doing, and don't forget, he's a Kennedy, I mean, he was a Democrat forever, and they want to work hand in hand with him, with me, with anyone else to improve the lives and health of children, I can promise you every single person I know, every person I was in that room with tonight commemorating Charlie's birthday, through laughter and tears, every single one of us would gladly work hand in hand with them. If it's sincere and that's what they want to do, we'd be thrilled. And that goes for crime. Like, why aren't we fighting crime together? That goes for, there are a lot of things we can agree on. It's what was great about Charlie, to bring it back around full circle, is that he loved to talk to people that disagreed with him because he knew there was a place you can connect with anyone's heart if you look deep enough.
Yeah, Gina, thank you so much. It's great to see you, and thank you for joining us on the Late Show Live from Mar-a-Lago, where you've been hosting that ceremony tonight. Dr. Gina Loudon there, Bo Loudon's mother, in fact, one of her many achievements. Gentlemen, can I ask you about this California banning ultra-processed foods from school meals?
Oh yeah, the Democrats are acting like Democrats again. This is supposed to be like an old school hippie issue. You know, we don't like the processed foods. We want everything to be farm fresh. Mally, are you a product of public schools?
Yes.
I am as well. Would you say you're traumatized by the cafeteria food?
It was not great.
All right, this is a new bipartisan issue. We're gonna fix the cafeterias. You know, this is one of the most remarkable things that has happened in the political alignment, is how I think mostly like vaccine policy and also pharmaceuticals have pushed the right wing of this country over to where they remember granola hippies from previous decades being. So we have a lot that we can do together right now.
Well, I would like to point out, though, this desire to fix our school lunches is not something RFK Jr. came out of nowhere. Michelle Obama very famously led an effort to tackle obesity and to make our school lunches better. And let me be clear, Republicans opposed a lot of those initiatives. So it's very funny to hear our guests say, well, I'm welcome to work with anyone.
Yeah, but
when Michelle Obama did it, you guys were incredibly difficult to work with. But I'm glad that now they're in power, they are willing to do that.
Did Michelle Obama, though, like Bobby Kennedy, go after the big guys? Did they go after the food production companies? Because that's the difference.
Michelle Obama actually worked with Congress and passed a national law to increase healthy food in our country, something that RFK Jr. has not done. What RFK Jr. has done is he has told us that circumcision leads to higher autism.
No, he hasn't.
He has told us that Tylenol, which there's not data for this, leads to autism. He has done a host of things that have not really made us
correlation
healthier.
between circumcision and the taking of the Tylenol when you're a young person. This is not super hard to understand. It's not the act itself.
One thing let's also talk about. Correlation does not mean causation.
Absolutely.
There is no evidence of causation that Tylenol causes autism. But I'm really looking forward to when the Trump administration claims they have fixed autism. I'm sure they'll say that in 3 months.
But again, this just to go back to what Gina Loudon was saying there, you are doing precisely what the left, I'm so sorry to draw that old-fashioned paradigm, repeatedly do. There is good intention to find the cause of a health condition, and you completely dismiss the sense of curiosity about it. You should be saying, I'm not going to tell my guests what you should be saying.
Yeah, okay.
You're not my husband. I reserve that. I reserve that for the very close men in my life. What you should be thinking maybe is, well, hang on a minute. I may not agree. I may not agree. No, you can't even disagree with it. I don't have faith that their scientific methodology is accurate, but I admire their willingness to try to find a cause for something like autism, which has exploded over 30 years.
I admire anyone's willingness to look into this problem, but what you're stating is actually what Kennedy is doing. He is starting with a pre-existing conclusion. He has the answers he wants to get to: vaccines, Tylenol.
How do you know that?
Those aren't even related. Again, the issue
if he wanted to find vaccine as causing injuries, he wouldn't have gone with the vaccine
Tylenol.
and not
Tylenol was the most out of left field thing that I've seen with RFK in his entire career.
He wants it to be big pharma. The CDC put out a report weeks ago that looked at the causes of autism. One of the things they said was a cause of autism was that we're increasing screening and we have lowered the diagnostic criteria.
They've taken that out.
That is completely true.
They took that out.
They have lowered the diagnostic criteria for what counts as autism.
They accounted for that in their research.
That is not true.
In their research, they accounted for.
They lowered the diagnostic criteria of what counts for autism, so it increases the amount of folks you can diagnose.
This is the same rubbish as people saying mental illness is only on the rise because of people feeling more comfortable talking about it and reporting. We all know that that is not true. Something has changed in the character of our kids in the schools, the people on our block. Autism is a real and noticeable problem. It's not just something that we're all of a sudden counting. We need to figure out what it is. I'm not on board with the Tylenol thing, and I think the way that you're talking about it is in a partisan spirit. I'm with the idea of curiosity and openness here. We'll see where this shakes out. My bit of skepticism, though, is RFK's history as a tort lawyer. His entire career was built off of suing companies, and the worry that Elizabeth Warren in his hearing had put forward was that he was going to open up a damages liability lawsuit and then leave government and cash in once those things are going through court. Because this thing with Tylenol will be going on for 10 years.
Yeah, quite right too. Yeah. And so it should be. Right, I think we're going to move on to a different story now.
What do we got?
We are going to talk about Generation Z polling. Now, this is a story that I know you guys wanted to talk about, which is that there's been some new research by YouGov, credible polling company in the UK, which has found what, Stephen, about young men?
This study is really dense, but it is about reported misogyny in Gen Z and then compared to other generations in the UK.
Sorry to interrupt you. We've got the graph on screen because I just want to explain to people who are listening on the radio as well. So they've divided men into 13 to 17-year-olds, Generation Z, millennials, which is what you two are, Generation X, which is what I am, boomer men, older, baby boomers after the war, and all women. Okay, so they've measured certain categories.
Yeah.
Believe the large majority of heterosexual women only want to date the most physically attractive 20% of men.
What a radical view.
Well, that's true.
How misogynistic. No.
That they see being
I agree.
Yeah, that they see being emotionally reserved as a positive trait. That they say they've been personally impacted by misandry, so the opposite of misogyny, as in people who hate men.
Yeah.
And they believe that most heterosexual women only want to date men of a high social status. Again, tick, true. Go, Steve.
One of the fascinating things here is the generational break. So I thought this poll was going to show that Gen Z was like somehow like remarkably misogynist because of porn culture, TikTok, the red pilling of young people on both sides of the Atlantic, really show that Gen Z really has nothing unique compared to millennials or even boomers. But what the big issue was that boomers think that women do not gravitate towards dating based on class and wealth. There was also no indication that boomers particularly think that women are performing better in society.
Yeah.
But young people who are still in the dating pool, still online, living their lives on Instagram, they see with their eyes on social media every day that women do prefer more attractive men. Not a newsflash. They do prefer men of higher social status. They're in the dating pool. Old people are not in the dating pool anymore, so they don't have to experience and see this in their lives.
Mally?
Well, I was very surprised by this finding because, and Stephen alluded to it, there's been a lot of talk about how Gen Z men have broken very conservative. We've at least seen it politically where millennial men voted for Democrats at pretty high levels. Gen Z men, at least in this latest election.
Let's just think how old Gen Z are. I think they are below, I think they're about 30 and below, aren't they?
At this point, yes. Millennials are like frozen in time for me. I'm 35 now. I'm sort of like a middle-of-the-road millennial. But Gen Z, they're in college, and some of them are in the workforce at this point. So
yeah, but I was surprised because what we hear is that Gen Z men have broken off and become much more conservative than their peers, which you think might translate into more traditional views about women.
Yeah.
And we don't see that. Millennials actually in this poll scored higher.
They do. We're the problem.
We're the problem.
It's funny because like young men in this poll do not think that women have it better than them, but boomers do. And so I think boomers who grew up in a time of less female participation in the workforce, they look at, television, they see what they see online, and they go, the tables have turned. But in many ways, it has. We know that addiction, suicide, education levels, upward mobility, all of these things have moved to be to the benefit of women. And men are definitely on their back foot on all these issues. And this poll lists it as misogynistic to suggest that women might be better off in modern society than they were, before feminism.
So just to be clear, Generation Z are those born between 1997 and 2012. Yeah. In my mind, if you were born in 2012, that makes you about 3.
Yeah.
How can that be true? And millennials, which is what you two are, born between 81 and 96. Generation X, 1965 to 1980, and baby boomers, if you're watching at home, 1946 to 64. You probably know that. My objection to this whole survey is using the word misogyny.
Yeah.
Because I think that is such a lazy word, because misogyny means to hate women, and that's not actually what this means. Because often when you poll people, and if men are saying, I'd quite like to have a traditional wife, who stays at home and has children, one builds the home, and I want to go to work. That's not hating women. That shouldn't be seen through the prism of misogyny. It might be a post-feminist. It's a very 2025 attitude. The trad wife, let me tell you, is on the rise.
It's a real thing.
Do you want a trad wife?
Well, I'm happily married for 15 years to a purple-haired liberal, as a matter of fact. Mary would be very impressed. But no, I think that this thing is very
Does she
real.
work? Does she do paid work outside of the house?
Finally, she's been a stay-at-home wife for the first 15 years.
Breaking away, Steve.
Yeah, she's breaking away. She's going to go be a scientist or something.
Is it because you wore that outfit?
Yes,
and would she be offended by the phrase trad wife?
Well, she's not, to be clear. I can't get her to hardly cook anything but soup, but I do love her very much.
But would she be offended by that? The idea of being a trad wife? Is it a pejorative term?
Well, no, it's not a pejorative term, and young people are seeking it out in droves.
I know.
It came from beginning with like prairie wear and young girls in their teens seeking out clothes that looked like, they're from the American 19th century.
Right.
But, my daughter is 14 years old, and she sees this with her own two eyes. Girls are generally more interested in something that came from a previous era. They do not like the way that boys act right now. They do not like the dating pool. They are alarmed by the behaviors of their peers. And I've been in Boy Scouts as a mentor and a Scoutmaster for the past couple of years. I'm alarmed at young boys and the way that they behave. I am. I'm very alarmed by it. But that's what all the polling shows is that young men and boys are struggling. They do not know where they fit into the world today.
Gen Z, we've seen from the polling, it's interesting and it's troubling in that they have higher levels of anxiety and depression. They're incredibly online. They don't hang out as much as like our generation did in person with other people, and they don't go on as many dates or have as much sex. They're just, I think COVID must have really hurt their development.
Oh, 100%. It did. And they were told to just stay in their bedrooms, not go to school and look at their phones, and they all developed tech addiction. And I genuinely use the word addiction.
Which is tough. I feel like I have tech addiction.
We all have it to some degree, but at least we have the knowledge and the insight to maybe not procrastinate quite as much with our day. Give a 15-year-old, 16-year-old a phone. It is designed to addict them. So it's no surprise that their lives are grinding to a sexless halt. And on that bombshell, right, still to come on the Late Show Live.
Sexless halt.
We shall not be coming to a sexless halt. Still to come, we're going to look at the newspapers. Let me tell you what's in the Daily Mirror. Boris did harm our kids. Tory Williamson blasts Johnson's damaging last-minute schools flip-flop. Huh. Tell you what that's about in a minute.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another cloudy day for most of us, with a few light showers around, otherwise dry, but lucky some will have some sunshine. A few cloud breaks possible in the south first thing, likewise for West Wales, but the largest cloud breaks, once again, like the previous few days, central and northern parts of Scotland, particularly over the Highlands and the Grampians, where the clouds are poking through the cloud and reaching the sunshine above. Some light showers around coast, but otherwise it's dry. It's not particularly chilly. It's not particularly warm either under the grey leaden skies, temperatures around the mid-teens. Then heading into the evening, well, we keep those clear skies across much of central Scotland. There is some thicker cloud for the north and northwest of Scotland. Some light showers associated with this as well. Cloud hugging the Western Isles, but clear inland. Through the central belt, mostly cloudy. Likewise for southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of England. But for Wales, well, a large part of West Wales and parts of Cornwall and Devon seeing some clear spells as we go into the night. And that's why we'll see big contrasts overnight from place to place, because where we keep the cloud, it's going to be a mild night. We'll avoid fog, but we will see a few mist patches forming as the cloud lowers a little. Where we keep the clear skies, there will be some fog patches and perhaps a touch of frost, or at least a ground frost, with temperatures heading towards the low single figures in a few spots. But otherwise, it's a reasonably mild start to Thursday, but again, a reasonably cloudy one. I think there's a better chance through the day tomorrow of some decent cloud breaks developing. Just about anywhere could see these. They'll come and go. Very fickle, this low cloud. And into Friday and the weekend, likewise, some cloud breaks, some sunshine, otherwise largely cloudy, until the end of the weekend when it turns more settled.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. I am Bev Turner. My panel are still with me. Mally Smith and Stephen Kent are here in the studio. Now we're going to have some fun with the newspapers. The Sun is leading with illegal migrant madness. What a waste of money, with a picture, with a painter's easel. And this is, I presume, this is about the money that we've spent on things that involve art in relation to migrants, but we'll have a look at that. I'm seeing these for the first time. The Times, Hamas kills its enemies on ceasefire, Gaza Street. Now, this, of course, is the difficult period following the ceasefire agreement as to whether Hamas will abide by Donald Trump's 20-point plan. What are they going to ask for? Is this ceasefire actually more fragile than we might have assumed yesterday? The Mirror is leading with, at last they admit it, Boris did harm our kids. Now, this is some findings which have come out of the COVID inquiry. And Tory Williamson is saying that Boris Johnson's damaging last-minute U-turn on schools affected kids. Well, if you think that now, Daily Mirror, why are we not saying that 4 years ago? What do you mean at last they admit it? I was shouting about it 4 years ago. The Daily Mirror wouldn't go anywhere near it, so don't feel so smug now. Daily Telegraph, Mahmood, UK has lost control of its borders. Now, the only reason I'm giggling at this is because my American guest pointed out that they thought, having seen this front cover with the blonde lady with the bow and arrow, that she must be called Mahmood, and she was watching the borders with her bow and arrow. So I've had to explain that the Daily Telegraph often puts a picture of a woman on the front page. In this case, it's Apple, Gwyneth Paltrow's daughter, Chris Martin. That is not our Home Secretary with a bow and arrow.
You guys need to invest in some new technology.
I am not a newspaper man, but the photo that is the largest goes with the lead story. So, but I would hire her to control the borders. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We've tried everything else, believe me. LA Times. Atmospheric river storms bring flooding and rescues in fire-scarred LA. What's an atmospheric river storm, Mally?
I have no idea.
My wife is going to school right now for atmospheric science, so I will text her and find out.
Find out. That would be great. In your role as my researcher and PA on my right. New York Times, they're running with Israel pressures Hamas to return the bodies, but Gaza's destruction poses a challenge. The American newspapers actually focusing a little more on the implications of what might happen if this peace resolution doesn't go forward smoothly. Let me know your thoughts this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Let's bring in comedian and GB News contributor Paul Cox down the line to join us here in the studio in Washington with Steve and Mally. Paul, let's have a look at this Daily Telegraph. It's interesting, isn't it, when you get the take of Americans who don't normally see the front cover and you realise that not only are newspapers archaic and out of date and shouldn't really exist to these Americans, they don't have them, but when you see that, I can see what they mean. The idea that Mahmood is the blonde lady with a bow and arrow trying to stop the migrants coming over the horizon. But let's explain to Stephen Mally who Mahmood is, why this is such a revelation that she's saying that we've lost control of our borders.
Well, I dare say there wouldn't be a sexual halt in the UK if that was our Home Secretary. I mean, what a beautiful girl that's turned out to be. But Mahmood is I always forget her first name, actually. But our Home Secretary... Shavana, that's it, Shavana Mahmood, our Home Secretary. Labour, as we all know, chaps, is much like the Democrats, a left-leaning party. Mahmood is considered a relatively right-leaning member of that Labour cabinet, and as such has been put in charge of solving our migrant crisis. She's just basically holding the fort until Nigel Farage gets in about 4 years' time, and will probably steal all of his policies during that time. But she's not Apple Martin at all, I'm afraid, chaps.
Well, we've just given Nigel an extra idea. Blonde ladies with bow and arrows all along the Kent coast. It's named after you, Stephen.
It's true.
You should...
Back to the home country.
Yeah, you should be down there. What else is on the front pages that we can have a look at? Paul Cox, you know I'm going to want to do this one. Boris harming our kids.
Look, I looked at all of them, Bev, and I thought this is exactly what you're going to want to do. Now, I agree entirely with this, right? Children were treated as collateral damage during the COVID pandemic. We can talk about everything around it, but let's talk about specifically the children at this moment in time, because my daughter daughter actually was in grade, well, what would be year 6 here when the lockdown happened in 2020. She's now 16 doing her A-levels. But I saw her go from year 6, grade 6 to grade 7 during the pandemic. And that is the transition between middle school and high school in the UK. And I saw her and a school colleagues suffer greatly as a result of the pandemic. They were shifted from pillar to post, stuck at home, sat away from their friends in their pyjamas all day, told to sit in front of a screen with hapless teachers who didn't know what to do with them. They were basically collateral damage in this experiment that we're probably only starting to see the damage transpire now.
I agree. I have a daughter exactly the same age. I didn't know that about you, Paul, and she was the same. She lost the last year of primary school. She's done all right, actually. It's the boys. I have a son who would have been sitting his GCSEs. It's the boys who have not coped well at all. Boys, boys here in the studio, my millennials here on my left and my right, you might be surprised to know that our COVID inquiry is still going on. It will cost, I think the best estimate is, what was it, Paul? Do you remember the latest figure? Something
no,
I want to say 200 million.
Yeah, it's like 150 to 200 million pounds, I believe. I mean, and by the way...
it's going to go on for years.
What exactly are you inquiring about?
Well, you tell us. I mean, we really don't know.
All of it? Where did it come from? Can we even talk about that?
I think
no, they're not looking at that. They're not looking at that.
No, they won't look at that. And do you know what? We'll probably all be too old to remember the pandemic by the time that they do conclude on this. Quite genuinely, no, there's no way, Bev. Bev could be 130, and God bless. I hope you live to 130, Bev. But you could be, if you were, you would definitely be all over this. You'd be presenting it here, no doubt.
I will. What are we looking for? Interestingly, because you must have had a COVID inquiry here in the US. You don't really do that kind of thing, do you? You just sort of move on.
We had investigations in Congress about the origin of COVID. We also certainly had oversight of Trump-era COVID policies and Biden-era COVID policies.
And some pardons for people at the top levels involved, including our Dr. Fauci, who was our basically just head of response here during the Trump and Biden administrations. The most curious thing that has happened so far regarding the pandemic has been those pardons for people at those top levels.
Yeah.
We didn't know anything untoward happened or anything wrong was done. What's the pardon for?
Yeah, exactly. Well, our COVID inquiry is meant to be learning the lessons for the, quote, next pandemic. But unfortunately, it's being chaired by a woman called Baroness Hallett, and she's asking none of the right questions. Effectively, the conclusion will be, I could save the government their 20 billion. The conclusion will, 200 billion, whatever it is, 20 billion. The conclusion will be, we should have locked down sooner, harder, had more mask mandates, more vaccine mandates. That is the way it is going. It is inherently biased. They're not asking whether it was right to do so in the first place. They're certainly not asking questions about Wuhan and any gain of function funding that might have been going on, funded by America. But anyway, it's all your fault. It's not, in collaboration with the Chinese. Right, let's move on. Shall we talk...
Also created the vaccine. Please continue.
Well, exactly. More trouble.
They made us sick so they could give us the cure.
And
a tale as old as time.
Sick again. Right, shall we talk about the fact that we had this peace resolution yesterday? Everybody was delighted, and what an amazing day. It really was. But we have to be a little cautious. The New York Times has basically focused on the fact that Hamas is yet to return the bodies. And Mali, one of the things that Trump has been heard to say time and time again, whenever he talks about moving forward in the Middle East, he talks about the parents who want the bodies of their deceased loved ones back, doesn't he? He's going to be watching this closely now.
Yeah, I mean, I am not someone who comes on TV a lot and gives Trump compliments, but today is that day with this peace deal because I think he was strategically smart to both pressure Israel, to pressure Hamas. Also, when Hamas gave their initial yes, but it was incredibly smart for him to say, great, let's go. You said yes, we're going to, head straight to the races and get this going, because if he didn't, I could easily have seen Israel nitpick it and say, well, Hamas is saying they still want to be a part. We're not so sure about that. But since Trump took the yes and went with it, we were able to get this space to get a deal. I would say, though, he should celebrate it. It is a celebration to get back all the hostages, but we need to temper our expectations in that there is a lot of rebuilding to do, and this is a region that is known for false starts and dashed hopes.
Yeah. Let's move on to this story about Time magazine. Now, President Trump, you think he would have had quite a lot on his mind in the last 24 hours, not least brokering peace in the Middle East, and also obviously this amazing ceremony at the White House this afternoon in regards to honouring Charlie Kirk. But he also noticed that Time magazine had depicted him in a very unflattering photograph. It's talking about his triumph. But he took to Truth Social, that is, of course, his social media platform yesterday, and he said, Time magazine wrote a relatively good story about me, but the picture may be the worst of all time, he said. They disappeared, in quotes marks, they disappeared my hair and then had something floating on top of my head that looked like a floating crown, but an extremely small one, suggesting if he had a crown it would be a big one. He said, it's really weird. I never liked taking pictures from underneath angles, but this is a super bad picture and deserves to be called out. What are they doing and why? And I have to say, I agree with him.
Well, it's not the reason of the hair. The real reason he doesn't like it is it's his turkey neck.
Let's have a look at this picture.
Oh, Mally, that's
let's have a look at this picture. It is desperately unflattering, though, Paul. I mean, you could take a picture of any of us from that angle. It's just awful.
No, nobody looks good from that angle at all, do they? I know I definitely wouldn't. And it's really unfortunate. I actually thought that was quite a moderate response from Donald Trump there. You know, he wasn't too overly flamboyant in his response. He didn't need to be, though, because he was quite magnanimous, I thought. And I think the reason he was is because yesterday was a momentous historical occasion for Donald Trump. The history books will show that phase one of this, and you're right to be slightly have some trepidation about where we lead to next, but phase one of this has been incredibly successful and wouldn't have taken place without Donald Trump. Of course, there are lots of other stakeholders and negotiators involved, and we should all be grateful to those, but all the hostages were returned. Look, Time magazine here had an opportunity just for one day, just for one moment, to put up a nice picture of Donald Trump and say thank you. They could have done. I mean, this is in bad faith. We know what they've done, and you know, I guess we wouldn't expect anything less from them.
Stephen?
You know, magazine spreads go through an incredibly rigorous process. They think about every single inch of how that cover is going to be used. And I know that this picture is not particularly flattering. There's the neck, there's the hair. And first of all, Donald Trump loves his hair. This is one of the things that he is just the most obsessed about. He loves his image, and he is also an image guy. I think it is hilarious that he is sounding off about this in the middle of the day, because this really irks him. But I will say, a shot from the bottom going up, that's a power and grandeur shot. That has always been the case when it comes to political photography and video. And also, you got the sun behind his head. It's almost like angelic in a halo. He looks magnanimous. So I think people are overreacting
So,
here a
Stephen,
little
you
bit.
don't think it was on purpose?
Well,
to make it look bad?
I do not. I really don't. I don't think that malice should be assumed when incompetence will do. All they could have done was just adjust the exposure a little bit so you could see his hair. But he does look bald.
If I'm going to be generous, I would say that it makes him look more like an elderly statesman. And I use the word elderly deliberately because there's one thing Donald Trump does not like to appear. It is his age. Why? Because do you know what? He doesn't behave his age. He doesn't look his age. He's nearly 80. He doesn't speak his age. He doesn't move his age. He is an absolute triumph of energy and determination over physiology and biology. I watch him on his campaign, not campaigning now, but he still behaves like he's a campaigning president. That's how he rules this country. His energy is indefatigable. And so I can totally understand why he would look at this and say, oh, come on, like you've tried to make me look like an old man. Being generous, they've made him look statesman-like. You don't. The hair can be a distraction. You know, the makeup sometimes can look like he's trying to be, as I say, trying to be younger maybe than he is. I think he looks great for his age.
He's larger than life.
He's larger than life, but I can totally understand why it would be interpreted as being just a slightly critical of him in a way, and just not flattering. And we know that he likes flattery, so let's. I don't think it was, like you say, I don't think it was accidental. I think they've done it on purpose to wind him up. They've certainly given the magazine a lot more publicity than it would have got because he's drawn attention to it.
That might have been the strategy.
That is all true.
Should we have a look at the situation in Washington, in the whole of America, this shutdown? Well, California's Governor Gavin Newsom signed 16 bills into law last night. The laws have targeted child online safety. They're putting guardrails and warnings on AI and social media. One law includes Apple and Google to implement tools to verify user ages. And here in the UK, we have the controversial Online Safety Act, where age limits must be enforced through verification tools. In fact, this isn't a shutdown story, is it? We're going to go to that in a moment. This is about making the internet apparently safer. There is Gavin Newsom, the Governor of California. Oh, Stephen, I find this issue very, very difficult as a parent, but I know that in the attempts perhaps to look after children, all we're doing is taking away the rights of adult humans.
You hit the nail on the head here. You know, to verify the age of a minor means verifying the ages of the adult users in the pool as well. I have always resented, as a somewhat young parent of a teenager, the idea that there are not capabilities in place for guiding your child's online experiences. Our phones, our laptops have tons and tons of parent tools through Google and Apple, to say the least, that you can help keep your kids safe. So I just don't really believe in age verification as an agenda. Also, you know, California's onerous laws here on AI and social media, they affect the rest of the country. What happens in California steers regulation for companies operating in 50 states.
What are your thoughts on the Online Safety Act in the UK, Paul?
I mean, first of all, as a dad to a 16-year-old daughter, obviously, much like you, Bev, we've seen them grow up with technology that we didn't have. I'm Gen X as well, born in '79, and we never had this technology. In fact, we learned about this type of social media technology through our children. So it's, you know, you had to sort of tiptoe through to make sure. At first, you're very scared of it, and then you realise that children need it actually to build their own communities and friendship groups. You know, you can't really alienate them by taking it all away. However, the cynical side of me looks at this from a political aspect, and I genuinely feel that the left have often used children to shape the things they want adults to do. You only have to look at Greta Thunberg. I mean, she's relatively irrelevant now, but you go back 3 or 4 years, or even longer, when she was a child and they were using her for the green zealotry and the climate change stuff. That was a child telling us that her future was being taken away. Very powerful message. But really, that was to get at adults and say, this is what we want you to do. And I fear that's what happens with this online bill, particularly in the UK. We are using it to squash free speech to some degree, and we've already seen that come into play. I mean, we've had thousands of people arrested in this country for things they've said online. Thousands.
You have to, correct me if I'm wrong here, Paul. You have to verify your age on pornography sites in the UK now, don't you? You have to verify who you are when you. You can see why I asked Tony from Ron Paul.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I have
no idea.
Say, I know nothing about that.
Look, I believe anecdotally that you do, Beverly, yes.
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Good.
Friends of mine have told me.
Fellas, yeah, exactly. Friends of mine have told me. I was talking to a bloke the other day and he went, you know that we can't watch porn in the UK now as adults. He meant him. I didn't mean we. He was talking about the men.
Well,
I'll dig myself back.
After the Online Safety Act passed, VPN downloads went through the roof in the UK.
Correct.
People are not stupid. They know how to end run around these kind of over-the-top regimes. So, you know, California is absolutely going the way of UK and the EU in really crushing technological innovation and connectivity online. At the end of the day, these laws keep people from associating with each other more freely.
You know, we know the question I'm going to come up with now then, boys. Can you look at porn on the internet here in America without verifying your age?
It depends on the state.
Yeah, it depends on the state. So in Virginia, right outside of the district, I mean, there's just a full shutdown on Pornhub, right? Like
Really?
it's completely blocked in Virginia because they wouldn't implement the ID verification process in the state. And so, you know, most localities, it's like, I'm 18, hit button.
Yeah.
But in certain states, you actually have to go through an ID process, and nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that. And it brings us to our earlier point, though, Mally, about the younger generation of boys who are living sexless existences. I actually think the implications of this might be quite good. They might actually want to go out and meet a girl or a boy and do the real thing rather than being in their bedroom.
Well, arguably, one of the reasons we have a sexless generation is that we know that younger people view porn at high levels. A lot of this porn is incredibly violent and desensitizes them to violent images of women or violent sexual images towards women. And I don't think it's a crazy idea to make sure that children can't access these images. We would think it's crazy if someone was selling pornography in a physical brick building and they didn't have an ID to make sure that only adults were going in. And we put limits on children doing things all the time. We have a driving limit. We have a limit when it comes to voting. And this isn't necessarily something that we brought out of nowhere. Research shows that kids' frontal lobes are not fully developed, so they cannot make rational decisions
All of
like adults.
this is true, but it comes back to, at the end of the day, when you download, say again, a VPN app from your app store, basically what they want to see is then Apple requires you to upload your ID so that you can download apps. All of our society will become roadblocks and ID checks, papers, please, for everything that you want to download. That's not the kind of society we want to live in. And, you know, porn online is not a perfect analogy to being able to buy medicine from a store. It's the internet.
But Stephen, one thing I would say though, I agree with you. I don't want the internet to become just this like roadblock of being
Papers,
able
please.
to access anything. But we've also had reporting that Meta's chatbots had sexual conversations with children. Like, this needs to be regulated. So I don't know if Gavin Newsom's proposals are the answer, but we got to find something.
Yeah, and of course in the UK, Paul, all we're seeing is digital ID coming down the tracks very quickly, and it will be, you will need it to do even the most basic of life tasks, won't you?
Yeah, see, I find it incredibly sinister. It's papers, please society, isn't it? And it's not, it's, for me, it's, you know, digital ID on its own in isolation doesn't ever sound like a bad thing. It's who owns the data that's the bad thing and what they plan to do with it. And we've seen through COVID that we do not want people to stop us from doing things because their politics tells them that they should do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Paul Cox, I think it's been a bit of an education tonight. I don't know about you. You need to go and tell your friend that I asked you that question.
Well, it's on telly, Beth,
how
so,
useful their
so
answer came in. Yeah. All right.
And now I know
Paul
which
Cox,
states
thank
I
you
can
so
watch
much.
Pornhub in, so even better.
I was going to say, no more pornography
The more you
questions
know.
on TV.
It's late night TV. I think we can be a little bit risky. I think that was all in the name of education, don't you? Right, Mally and Steve, I hope you've enjoyed this evening as well. It's been another great evening with you two. And tell your wife, I like the outfit.
I will.
Yeah,
I'll
more
let her know.
1980s.
You said sexy professor?
More 1980s geography teacher clothes. You need to get the memo for next time, Mally. Right, thank you all at home for spending your night with me on The Late Show Live. I will be back here tomorrow night. That will be midnight, of course, at home in the UK. And it will be 7 p.m. here in Washington, D.C. Sleep well.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another cloudy day for most of us, with a few light showers around, otherwise dry, but lucky some will have some sunshine. A few cloud breaks possible in the south first thing, likewise for West Wales, but the largest cloud breaks, once again, like the previous few days, central and northern parts of Scotland, particularly over the Highlands and the Grampians, where the clouds are poking through the cloud and reaching the sunshine above. Some light showers around coasts, but otherwise it's dry. It's not particularly chilly. It's not particularly warm either under the grey leaden skies, temperatures around the mid-teens. Then heading into the evening, well, we keep those clear skies across much of central Scotland. There is some thicker cloud for the north and northwest of Scotland. Some light showers associated with this as well. Cloud hugging the Western Isles, but clear inland. Through the central belt, mostly cloudy. Likewise for southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, much of England. But for Wales, well, a large part of West Wales and parts of Cornwall and Devon seeing some clear spells as we go into the night. And that's why we'll see big contrasts overnight from place to place, because where we keep the cloud, it's going to be a mild night. We'll avoid fog, but we will see a few mist patches forming as the cloud lowers a little. Where we keep the clear skies, there will be some fog patches and perhaps a touch of frost, or at least a ground frost, with temperatures heading towards the low single figures in a few spots. But otherwise, it's a reasonably mild start to Thursday, but again, a reasonably cloudy one. I think there's a better chance through the day tomorrow of some decent cloud breaks developing. Just about anywhere could see these. They'll come and go. Very fickle, this low cloud. And into Friday and the weekend, likewise, some cloud breaks, some sunshine out there, otherwise largely cloudy until the end of the weekend when it turns more settled.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News. Join me.